Good morning, dear students. Today, let us continue with this story, A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan. If you had followed the previous video, you will recall that we had stopped at a point in the story where Muni felt totally confused when the foreigner had tried to explain to him how he loved chopping wood for fire at home on Sundays. Whilst the foreigner was trying to explain to him that it was his hobby, chopping wood, he enjoyed it on the days when he was not working. Muni thought it would be appropriate, a suitable time for him to make his way out of that difficult situation. He decided to edge away, to quietly get away from this man, and he turned to go home, saying to the foreigner, "Must go home." When he turned to go home, the foreigner, the red-faced man, seized him, held him firmly and tightly by his shoulder and said desperately, pleading with him, asking him whether there was no one in that entire place who could help him to translate what he was saying so that he could explain it clearly to Muni, and Muni would be able to understand what he was trying to tell him. So he pleaded, literally pleaded with him, desperately pleaded with him, asking him, was there no one, absolutely no one there to translate for him? He looked up and down after that, up and down the road. It was deserted. Deserted means totally empty. There was no person around, and it was a very hot afternoon. The stranger almost pinioned Muni's back to the statue and asked. Whilst the foreigner was speaking with him, he had forgotten that he had almost pushed him against the horse statue. He had his back against the horse statue. That is the meaning of pinioned him, almost had got him against the statue of the horse. "Isn't this statue yours?" the foreigner had asked him, if you recall. "Why don't you sell it to me?" So the foreigner questioned Muni to know whether he was the owner of that horse statue and would he not want to sell it to him. The old man now understood the reference to the horse, thought for a second and said in his own language, "I was an urchin this high when I heard my grandfather explain this horse and warrior, and my grandfather himself was this high when he heard his grandfather, whose grandfather." So this old man Muni, he had understood only one thing, that the foreigner was meaning to say something regarding the horse statue. And in his innocence, he had come up with this thought that the foreigner could be asking him regarding the history of the statue of the horse. He thought for a second and he began to explain to him in his own local Tamil language. He began to tell him about the history of the horse, what he had learnt and heard from his grandfather when he was a very young boy. An urchin meaning to say a very dirty, shabby, homeless boy. But he mentions that he had a grandfather, so he could not have been homeless. He mentioned that he had a father, so he could not be homeless. An urchin is one who plays in the dust and mud, is very dirty and not taken proper care of. So he said when he was an urchin, he had heard from his grandfather the story of that horse statue, and his grandfather himself had heard regarding the story of that horse statue from his grandfather. And his grandfather's grandfather had heard about the story of the horse statue from his grandfather. And he was about to continue, and he had referred to his age when he was young, meaning to tell the foreigner with his sign, with this sign of his hand, using his hand, that he was just that high. I was this high, he said, when he was an urchin, when he used to play in the mud and dust, dirty and shabby, no one to take care of. He had heard from his grandfather, indicating his age, using his hand and saying to him that, meaning to indicate to him when he was a young boy, regarding what he had heard from his grandfather, and his grandfather had heard it from his grandfather, and his grandfather had heard it from his grandfather. So he meant to continue, meaning to say that he had heard about the history of the horse statue from his grandfather, who had heard from his grandfather, and so on and so forth. When the foreigner interrupted him, stopped him, I don't want to seem to have stopped here for nothing. I will offer you a good price for this, he said, indicating the horse. He had concluded without the least doubt that Muni owned this mud horse. Perhaps he guessed by the way he sat on its pedestal, like other souvenir sellers in this country presiding over their wares. So the man had interrupted him from continuing to speak about what he had heard from his grandfather, the history of the horse statue. He hadn't understood exactly what Muni was trying to explain to him, and he went on to speak, telling him that he didn't want to seem to have stopped there for nothing. He meant to say that he wasn't wasting Muni's time, and he hadn't stopped there just for fun, for nothing. And he was willing to offer a good price for that horse statue to Muni, trying to tell him that he was there not to waste his time, indicating to that horse which he wanted to buy from Muni. He had concluded without the least doubt that Muni owned this mud horse, and he had thought, he had come to that conclusion that Muni was the owner of that horse statue, and he had no doubts regarding it. And how had he come to that conclusion? He had come to that conclusion for he had seen across India, wherever he had travelled, there were people like Muni who sat by the road with their wares, with their goods and items which they intended to sell. By the roadside, they would spread them out before them and sit as if to rule over them, presiding over them. And they would often sell souvenirs. And what is a souvenir? A souvenir is a thing which is bought, paid for, bought, or taken by one, especially a tourist visiting some different place, places as a tourist, sorry, you must have bought yourself a souvenir, an item that would help you to recall the happy memories of the place or the person or the persons you had met there and the time that you had spent there. So it is a kind of an item of memory that helps a person to recall one's travel or having been somewhere. Now, this foreigner, he thought that Muni could not have been anyone else but a souvenir seller from his experience of having traveled across India, seeing many other people like him sitting by the roadsides with their goods all spread out before them, and they sat in a manner with authority over their goods as if to take care of their goods, presiding over them. So here, wares means goods. Muni followed the man's eyes and pointing fingers and dimly understood the subject matter and feeling relieved that the theme of the mutilated body had been abandoned, at least for the time being, said again enthusiastically, I was this high when my grandfather told me about this horse and the warrior, and my grandfather was this high when he himself, and he went on to further explain. Muni, just this paragraph to help you understand. Muni followed the man's eyes very closely and his fingers pointing at the horse, and he understood that what the foreigner was talking about was related to the horse statue, and he felt relieved. He felt as if a big burden had been removed off his shoulders. He felt a little relaxed that the theme, the topic of their discussion was not the dead body that had been cut into pieces and disposed under a tamarind tree between the two villages of Kupam and Kritam. Instead, it was the horse statue that the foreigner was trying to refer to and talk about. Realizing that the topic of the mutilated body had been abandoned, had been discarded for the time being, he felt relaxed, and he very enthusiastically, he in a very energetic and happy manner with all smiles, he said, I was this high. He said, he was indicating with his hand, trying to tell the foreigner when he was very young. I was this high when my grandfather told me about this horse and the warrior, and my grandfather was this high when he himself, so indicating to the foreigner with his hand that when he was very young, trying to show him how old he was with the height from the ground that he was, that he had heard from his grandfather who had told him regarding the history of that horse statue and the warrior statue that stood beside. And he went on to say that his grandfather had heard it from his grandfather when he was very young. And as he was about to continue, the Tamil that Muni spoke for the foreigner was stimulating. Stimulating means very energizing. He felt very energized. The foreigner, listening to Muni speak, felt very happy and energetic with the sound and the rhythm, the rhyme and rhythm and the music that was there in the way Muni spoke Tamil. The Tamil that Muni spoke was stimulating, means made him feel very energetic. Even as pure sound, even if he hadn't understood a single word of it, what he was trying to mean, he felt very happy listening to the musicality of, if there is a word, I see this word is used today in BBC. So he was moved by the musical way it was spoken. And the foreigner listened with fascination. The foreigner was absolutely taken up by the tone and the rhythm in which Muni was using Tamil to express himself. He was listening to every word with a lot of interest, though he hadn't understood anything. I wish I had my tape recorder here, and he wished that he had got his tape recorder with him there so that he could record what Muni was saying. He said, assuming the pleasantest expression, he thought about wishing to have a tape recorder and record Muni what he was saying, thinking that Muni was using the most beautiful expressions to explain to him something about the horse. Assuming means taking him to be explaining, using the most beautiful words regarding the description of the horse statue. Your language sounds wonderful, he told the foreigner. That the way he was speaking, the language was very wonderful. It sounded very wonderful, the way and manner in which Muni was using it and speaking it. I get a kick out of every word you utter here. And he said, it made him swoon, S-W-O-O-N, swoon. It made him feel intoxicated, I-N-T-O-X-I-C-A-T-E-D, intoxicated means it made him feel that his head went reeling as if he was drunk by the sound and the music of the language that Muni was using. He felt a buzz in his head by the way Muni was speaking. And he went on to say next, your language sounds wonderful. I get a kick out of every word you utter, he told Muni. He indicated his ears, trying to tell Muni how pleasant he was feeling listening to him speaking. But you don't have to waste your breath in sales talk. I appreciate the article. And he assured to him there was no need of him to carry on trying to explain regarding the quality of the statue, so on and so forth, trying to convince him to buy the horse statue from him, trying to explain as a salesperson to him regarding the horse statue, because the foreigner told him that he liked the article, the horse and the soldier, the statue of the horse and the soldier, and he was ready to buy it. You don't have to explain its points, he told him. There was no need for Muni to explain to him in detail regarding the statue of the horse and the soldier, under which Muni was found sitting by the foreigner. I never went to a school in those days. Only Brahmin went to schools, but we had to go out and work in the fields morning till night from sowing to harvest time, and when Pongal came and we had cut the harvest, my father allowed me to go out and play with others at the tank, and so I don't know the Firangi language you speak. Even little fellows in your country probably speak the Firangi language, but here only learned men and officers know it. What he meant to say, Muni hadn't understood what the foreigner was trying to tell him. The foreigner was interested to buy the horse statue from him, and he asked him not to try and give him that long sales talk, convince him to buy the statue from him. He appreciated the statue and he was willing to pay a high price for it. Muni spoke on a totally different topic which had no relation to what the foreigner was trying to tell him. He said that he had never been to school, he had never been educated. In those days only the Brahmin class went to school. Children of the Brahmin high society went to school, which clearly tells us about the huge gap that existed between the high class and the low class. The huge disparity between the different classes in society. So he was from a poor farming shepherd background, so he hadn't had the opportunity to go to school, and that is what he was trying to tell the foreigner. And he said when he was young, he had to go out and work in the fields from morning till night, from sowing the seeds, planting the seeds, till the time of harvest, cutting the produce from the fields. And when this harvest festival, Pongal, would come, everybody would be happy in the village. It was then that his father would allow him to go and play with his friends, and the only form of entertainment and play they would enjoy was to go to the village tank and have a nice time there. And so I don't know the Firangi language, and since he hadn't been to school, he told the foreigner, he did not have any knowledge regarding English language, which he called the Firangi language, which the foreigner was speaking. And he said, probably according to him, he said that even the young chaps, even the young fellows, even the youngsters back in his country, USA, which he didn't know of course, he said probably everybody, even the young children or young people back in his country from where he was, knew how to speak the Firangi language, but there in his village only the educated few people knew how to speak and write this particular Firangi language which he was referring to. And those who worked in government offices as officers knew it. No other people in his village knew the Firangi language, which he referred to actually was English. The foreigner laughed heartily. The foreigner hadn't understood what Muni was trying to tell him, but he had a good laugh, took out another cigarette and offered it to Muni, who now smoked with ease. He wasn't tensed any longer. He wasn't fretting, F-R-E-T-T-I-N-G, fretting. He wasn't fretting. He wasn't afraid any longer, because he had realized that he wasn't an inquisitor or a police or a soldier. Deciding to stay on if the foreigner was going to be so good as to keep him up with cigarette supply, he was willing to stay on for a little longer if the foreigner was going to offer him cigarettes after cigarettes. or a cigarette after cigarette. The American now stood up on the pedestal, on the platform, in an attitude of a demonstrative lecturer and said, running his finger along some of the carved decorations around the horse's neck, speaking slowly and uttering his words syllable by syllable. I could give a sales talk for this better than anyone else. This is a marvelous combination of yellow and indigo. Though faded now, how do you people of this country achieve these flaming colors? He asked. So, after the foreigner had laughed heartily and offered another cigarette to Muni, he stood up on the platform of the horse statue with an attitude of a demonstrative lecturer, as if he was a lecturer in college, a teacher in college, and he was going to demonstrate or describe to the students regarding the horse statue. And he was running, feeling with his fingers some of the carved decorations around the horse's neck. And he was speaking very clearly, slowly, uttering, pronouncing each word, sound by sound, breaking each word sound by sound and speaking very gently, slowly, in a clear manner, that he could give the best sales talk if he were allowed. He could give the best sales talk to a crowd of people to help sell this statue to them convincingly, successfully, better than anyone else in the whole wide world. And he said that the statue was marvelous in terms of its color. It was painted yellow and indigo. Indigo is a particular color which is kind of with a tinge of blue. If you see Robin liquid that we use to dye our clothes after, especially the white clothes after they are washed, that is the kind of color that I'm talking about. So it was a fine combination of yellow and indigo, though the color had faded over the years, but it was still attractive. How do you people of this country achieve these flaming colors? And he asked Muni, how did the people of this country, India, become successful, get success in trying to create, in achieving to create such bright, flaming means bright and attractive colors such as indigo and yellow, which had been used to paint that horse? Muni, now assured that the subject was still the horse, not the dead body, said, "This is our guardian. It means death to our adversary." Muni realized that the topic of their conversation was not the dead body which he had earlier thought that the foreigner had come to inquire about. And he said in a very relaxed manner that the horse statue was their guardian, a protector, one who would take care of the people of Kritam. It was their guardian, and it meant that problems. It would take care of their problems and end their problems, protect them and end their sufferings and end their problems. That is the meaning of adversary. Their problems, pains and suffering. This horse statue would take care of all that and protect them. At the end of Kali Yuga, Kali Yoga means it is an epoch. Please underline and write EPOCH. Again, EPOCH. Epoch. Epoch meaning it is a period of time in this long history of human existence. It is a period of time in history, epoch. This Kali Yoga or Kali Yoga, as per Muni, he said, please follow your text. At the end of the Kali Yoga, this world and all other worlds will be destroyed and the Redeemer will come in the shape of a horse called Kalki. This horse will come to life and gallop and trample down all bad men. So he began to refer and explain to the foreigner regarding the backdrop or the background related to the horse statue. And he said, referring to the Hindu mythology, the stories that he had heard, this Kali Yoga is, again I repeat, is an epoch, a period of time in this long history of human existence or human history. And this particular horse would come alive at the end of the Kali Yoga. And it would go around trampling, killing all the bad people, redeeming, saving and rescuing all the good ones and rewarding them. Now, what is the reference to the Hindu mythology? It is up here on the board. According to Kalki, it is not the horse. Muni had a different view of it. So, Kalki was the avatar or the avatar. See there, here, avatar means the incarnation. Incarnation, meaning Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, who is also regarded as the preserver, one who preserves and takes care of everything that is created. Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. So Kalki, this Kalki, which is mentioned in the Hindu mythology, would be no one else than Vishnu. Vishnu would come in the form of Kalki, in the avatar of Kalki, meaning he would come down from heaven and take the form of Kalki. That is the meaning of avatar, taking the form of on earth as Kalki, and he would go around taking care of the good ones, rewarding them, destroying the bad ones, and ending this dark and this destructive period of lawlessness, immoral period of history, sinful period of history, and he would inaugurate and start this Satya Yoga, a time period in the history of mankind where truth would prevail. There would be goodness. People would function in society according to good laws and principles. There would be good deeds done, and everybody would live in peace. Now this Kalki had married Padmavati, the daughter of the king of Simhala, the daughter of the king of Simhala. This word was missing on the board. And she had rejected Varuna, she had rejected Indra, she had rejected Yama. Instead, she had married this god Nala, N-A-L-A, Nala, which angered this Asura, this demon, this evil demon Kali. Kali wanted to marry Padmavati, the daughter of the king of Simhala. And when this didn't happen, when he found that Padmavati had married Nala, he was very angry and he wanted revenge. So he conspired with his close companion. He went to the kingdom of Simhala and waited for 12 years to strike and take revenge. That is how the whole bloody means the destruction, and this dark age had come in, to end which Kalki, Vishnu had taken the form of Kalki, descended from heaven and had come down to destroy Kali, restore peace, harmony, and start this new, peaceful, happy, good epoch, time period of this Hindu belief. Now Muni had referred to that Kalki would come. He was talking of the horse. But Kalki had this white horse and he carried a fiery sword with him. Do you understand? This is the horse that he was talking about, the horse of this Vishnu avatar Kalki. He said at the end of the Kali Yuga, the horse would come alive and he would go around and trample all the evil and bad people, save the good ones. That is the reference he was making. So here, at the end of Kali Yuga, this world and all the other worlds will be destroyed and the Redeemer will come in the shape of the horse called Kalki. The horse will come to life and gallop. It would start running and trample. It would stampede all the bad ones down and kill them. While he was brooding on this pleasant vision, while he was brooding means he was just standing there and thinking, doing nothing else. To brood means to ponder over, sit, do nothing except think. So he was standing there and thinking, doing nothing else, brooding, while he was thinking of all that, thinking of the pleasant, the happy vision that he enjoyed, telling the foreigner about. This is a reference to Kalki, the horse, and the entire story from the Hindu mythology about the background of the horse statue. The foreigner utilized this short period of quietness, this pause, when Muni did not speak, he was just thinking, I assure you that this will have the best home in the USA. He assured to him that the horse statue would have the best home in USA. He would take it back and keep it safely, securely in his home. I'll push away the bookcase. You know I love books and am a member of 5 book clubs. And he went on to explain that he would remove all the books, the bookshelves, the bookcases, and that he was a member of 5 book clubs back in USA, and he had many books given to him as bonus volumes because of his membership, and they had all been piled up to the height of almost that particular horse statue. He indicated, or he showed, tried to explain to Muni. But he said all those books would have to be removed and would have to be thrown away, and he would throw away. He went on to say that his wife might or would disapprove means would disagree with him throwing away all those books, getting them removed from their living room. But he said, that he would somehow convince his wife and get the horse statue placed there in that room after having removed all the books and discarding them. He was so in love with that horse statue. Till there, gentlemen, next recording we will continue with the story. Thank you. Kindly follow and learn from it.